I never imagined I'd become the kind of woman who'd live a double life. For 19 years, my marriage to Michael had been built around discipline, order, and duty, the three words that define a military life. He was an Air Force logistics officer, the kind who could fix a crisis in a war zone but couldn't read the look in his wife's eyes. We were about to celebrate our 20th anniversary. 20 years of moving from base to base, smiling for photographs at every promotion, and pretending that the constant uprooting didn't tear something inside me every time we left another home behind. Michael was predictable, the kind of man who believed silence was strength. And for a while, that steadiness felt safe. Until it didn't. It started with loneliness. When he was away on missions, I filled my days with base events, wives' club luncheons, and pretending to care about home decor projects. That's when I met Ryan, a defense contractor, charming in a reckless sort of way. He was married, too, to a Pilates instructor named Samantha, who seemed to live on social media more than in real life. At first, Ryan was just someone who noticed me. He'd hold eye contact a little longer than polite conversation required. He'd text me after meetings, harmless jokes that slowly turned into late-night confessions. One afternoon, while Michael was deployed in Nevada, Ryan and I met for coffee off base. That was the first time he called me beautiful. It should have ended there, but it didn't. Our affair didn't feel like betrayal in the beginning. It felt like being seen for the first time in years. Ryan made me laugh, made me feel young again. Every secret message, every hotel key felt like rebellion against a life that had quietly suffocated me. I told myself Michael would never understand. He lived for the Air Force, not for us. Still, guilt crept in slowly, like smoke under a door. I tried to bury it by cooking his favorite meals, buying expensive lingerie, even pretending to be happy when he got promoted again. But secrets don't stay buried forever. The first crack appeared when I got that message. Send another $2,000 or your husband finds out your dirty little secret. My hands shook when I read it. The message came from a local number. At first, I thought Ryan was joking. But when I called him, his voice broke. Sam found out, Laura. She went through my emails. Samantha, his wife. I felt the room spin. She had everything, our photos, receipts, maybe even messages. And she was demanding money. I'd already sent $5,000 from our joint account, pretending to help a friend in need. Michael had asked that morning where the money went. I lied, saying it was for a struggling military spouse. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. For a few days, things went quiet. But Samantha wasn't bluffing. She started sending veiled messages. Tell your husband the truth before I do. You don't deserve him. Every buzz of my phone felt like a gun cocking behind my head. Ryan tried to calm me down. We'll figure it out. I'll talk to her. But he didn't. He was terrified too. His job depended on his security clearance, one whisper of infidelity, and his entire career would crumble. We met at a small motel off the interstate, room 127, Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was the only place we felt safe. Except safety was an illusion. Because I didn't know Michael had already started following me. The week before our anniversary, I noticed something off. He was quieter than usual, watching me longer, like a man memorizing a crime scene. When he asked, "Is everything perfect, Laura?" I froze. He never asked that kind of question. I lied again, told him everything was fine. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Samantha holding all those photos, laughing while she drafted another blackmail message. The next day, I told Ryan we had to end it. He refused. If she wants more money, we'll pay her one last time. I wanted to believe him, but the messages kept coming, uglier this time. 10,000, or I send everything to your husband CO. You think he won't find out? He already suspects. I cried in Ryan's car, begging him to fix it. That's when I said something I'll regret for the rest of my life. If she won't stop, maybe she shouldn't be able to. Ryan looked horrified. You don't mean that. But part of me did. I was desperate. I wasn't thinking like a wife anymore. I was thinking like a cornered animal. What I didn't know was that my husband was in the next room. Michael had rented room 126 right beside us. He heard everything. When Ryan and I left that motel that day, I thought we were safe again, that we'd finally figure out how to stop Samantha from ruining us. But by the time I got home, everything had already changed. Michael didn't look at me the same way. His eyes were calm, too calm, like he'd already decided something I couldn't read. That night, while I told him I was working late, he tracked me. He knew I wasn't at the office. He knew I was with Ryan. And I had no idea he'd gone to warn Samantha himself. The night after that last motel meeting, I told Michael I had an early committee meeting with the base spouses. He just nodded. No suspicion in his voice, no accusations. But there was something different about him, like he was looking straight through me. That silence scared me more than yelling ever could. I told myself I was being paranoid. He didn't know anything. He couldn't. But my gut whispered otherwise. The next day, Ryan called me. His voice was low and panicked. "Samantha's escalating," he said. "She sent me an email. Subject line says final payment. She says if she doesn't get 10 grand by tonight, she's mailing photos to your husband." I felt my heart sink. What do we do? Ryan hesitated. "We might have to talk to her face to face. Try to reason with her." The thought made my stomach twist, but I agreed. We decided to meet her the next day after her Pilates class. Ryan said he'd reach out. I didn't know then that someone else already had. That evening, I came home and found Michael's car in the driveway, lights off inside. When I walked in, the house felt colder than usual. He was sitting at the kitchen table, files spread across the surface. Our bank statements, printed GPS logs, screenshots of my messages. My world stopped. "Sit down, Laura," he said calmly. I tried to speak, but my throat wouldn't work. "How long?" I stared at the papers, trying to find words that could undo years of damage. "It wasn't supposed to be." "How long?" he repeated, quieter this time. 6 months, I whispered. He nodded slowly. "And the money?" I told him part of the truth, that Samantha had been blackmailing us, that I panicked, that I didn't know what else to do. He didn't yell. He didn't throw anything. He just looked tired, like someone who'd finally solved a puzzle he never wanted to finish. Then he said something that froze my blood. "You and Ryan met yesterday at the Desert Winds Motel." My mouth went dry. "How do you know that?" "Because I was in the next room." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. He knew. He'd heard everything. The blackmail. The affair. Even that one reckless sentence about stopping her. I tried to explain that I didn't mean it literally, that I was terrified and desperate. But the words sounded hollow. Even to me. Michael stood and walked toward the window. "You've crossed a line you can't come back from, Laura." When he turned around, his face was unreadable. "If you're planning to fix this, now's your last chance." I didn't know what he meant then, but I would soon. The next night, Ryan called me again, voice trembling. "Samantha's gone to the police." I nearly dropped my phone. "What do you mean gone?" "She filed a report, said we were threatening her. She told them everything." I started pacing the kitchen. "Oh my God, what do we do?" "I don't know," he said. "She has evidence, bank transfers, photos, maybe recordings." "Laura, if she told them about that conversation." He didn't finish. I didn't need him to. That was the night everything unraveled. At 11:47 p.m., my phone started buzzing. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Then another. Finally, I picked up. "Mrs. Mitchell? Detective Maria Santos, Colorado Springs PD. We'd like you to come in tomorrow morning." My knees buckled. "Why?" "It concerns a complaint filed against you and Mr. Ryan Carter by a Mrs. Samantha Carter. It's in your best interest to cooperate." I hung up without answering. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I called Ryan. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Then I checked our GPS tracker, the one Michael had insisted we use for safety. It showed Ryan's location out near an industrial complex by Pueblo. And next to it was my car. That's when I realized I wasn't the only one being tracked. By the time I drove out there, flashing lights filled the night. Police cruisers, black SUVs, and tactical vans. Before I could even step out, someone shouted, "Hands where we can see them." It was chaos, agents, floodlights, shouting. I saw Ryan first, handcuffed, looking terrified. Then I saw Michael standing behind a vehicle with 2 federal agents. That's when I knew he'd called them. I screamed, "Michael, please, let me explain." He didn't even blink. One of the agents, a woman with silver hair, approached me. "Laura Mitchell, you're under arrest for extortion, conspiracy, and threatening a federal witness." Her words didn't make sense. Federal witness? Who? Then I realized Samantha had gone to the FBI. They were treating her as a witness, not a suspect. And I was the criminal. As they zip-tied my hands, I saw Michael step closer, still expressionless. I shouted through tears, 13 years, Michael. 13 years I followed you from base to base, building your life while losing mine." He didn't answer. He just said quietly, "You destroyed it yourself, Laura." I broke down right there on the asphalt, mascara running, wrists burning from plastic cuffs, the flashing lights bouncing off every bad decision I'd ever made. Ryan tried to call out to me, but agents shoved him into a van. The last thing I heard before they closed the door was one of the FBI agents saying, "He's agreed to cooperate." Ryan was already turning on me. The interrogation that followed felt endless. Hours of questions, recordings, accusations. They told me Ryan had stolen restricted chemicals from the base, solvents, acids. They said we were planning to make sure Samantha couldn't hurt us anymore. I told them it was a lie, that we were just scared, that we only wanted her to stop blackmailing us. But every word felt like I was sinking deeper into quicksand. They had text messages, screenshots, even audio fragments from Samantha's email logs. By dawn, I was charged with conspiracy to harm a federal witness. And Michael had already filed for divorce. When they finally let me call home, I dialed his number. He didn't pick up. I sent him one message after another. "Please call me. I can explain." "They're lying, Michael. I never meant to hurt anyone. Please. You don't understand what's really happening. If you won't listen to reason, you'll have to live with the consequences." That last one wasn't a threat, it was desperation. But they used it against me later, quoting it word for word as proof of intent. And maybe it was intent. Maybe a small, furious part of me wanted him to feel the pain I was drowning in. When they moved me into the federal holding center, I still thought this was temporary. That somehow, Michael would come to his senses, that Ryan would tell the truth, that we never meant to hurt anyone. But every day after that blurred together into something hollow. Gray walls, steel doors, the constant hum of fluorescent lights, and the echo of other women crying themselves to sleep. For the first time in 20 years, there were no uniforms, no ranks, no base events, just me and my mistakes. During interrogation, I learned just how deep everything had gone. Ryan had already confessed to the affair, to the blackmail, to accessing restricted materials from his lab. He told them it was my idea. He said I'd threatened to expose his affair if he didn't help me solve the problem with Samantha. That wasn't true. But by then, what did the truth even matter? Every action, every word, every transfer from our bank account made me look like the mastermind. The prosecutor said our plan involved using industrial chemicals to intimidate Samantha, to destroy evidence or worse. The irony? I'd never even seen those chemicals. They were Ryan's doing, but my name was on the conspiracy. When the FBI showed me the evidence, text messages, call logs, and those surveillance photos, I finally understood. Michael had given them everything. He'd turned me in. I told myself I hated him for it, but deep down, I knew he was right too. When you live your whole life beside a man who believes in integrity above all else, you can't be surprised when he chooses it over you. A few days later, they transferred me to a federal detention facility in Colorado Springs. That's where I spent my 20th wedding anniversary, alone, wearing orange, watching a TV in the common room as the news ran a short segment about the arrests of 2 military-connected individuals in a conspiracy and extortion case. They didn't use our names, but everyone on base knew. Michael's colleagues, the other wives, even the local papers. Everywhere, people whispered about the cheating wife and the chemical plot. The day of the trial was the worst. They brought me in handcuffed in front of everyone, Michael, the prosecutors, even Samantha. Ryan was sitting on the opposite side, wearing a suit, pretending to look remorseful. He didn't even glance at me. Samantha was there too, her posture straight, her hair perfect, as if she hadn't just destroyed 3 lives in one move. But I couldn't even blame her anymore. She was doing what I would have done, fighting back after being humiliated. The judge read the charges like a grocery list of my failures. Conspiracy to commit violence against a federal witness, extortion accessory to theft of government property, conspiracy to commit murder. When I heard the last one, I felt the room tilt. Murder. They were saying I'd wanted to kill her. I wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that I'd only said those words out of fear. But when you've lied enough times, nobody believes you when you finally tell the truth. Michael sat silently in his dress blues the entire time. He didn't look angry. He didn't look sad. Just distant. When the prosecutor asked if he'd testify, he said yes, and he did. He told them everything he'd heard, everything he'd seen, every lie I'd told. He didn't embellish, didn't dramatize. He just laid out the facts, calm and precise, like he was briefing another mission. When it was over, he removed his wedding ring and placed it on the table before walking out. That sound, the quiet click of metal on wood, felt like my entire life shattering in one motion. Ryan got 15 years. He'd cut a deal, testified against me, claimed he was manipulated. Samantha got 2 years probation for extortion and served only 4 months. She later moved to Arizona, started a new Pilates studio. And me? I got 25 years in federal prison. 25 years for a life that fell apart in 6 months. At first, I told myself I'd survive it. That Michael would eventually forgive me. That maybe one day, when he saw how broken I'd become, he'd visit. He never did. A few months after the sentencing, I received divorce papers through my attorney. I signed them without reading the fine print. What was left to fight for? When the final decree came through, I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Not because of the prison walls, I could survive those, but because I realized that even if I got out someday, there would be nothing left of the person I used to be. Samantha sent me one letter, the only one I ever received. It said, "I don't hate you anymore. I actually pity you. You lost everything trying to protect a lie. I hope someday you find peace." I stared at that letter for hours before tearing it into pieces. But even now, years later, I can still remember every word. The last time I saw Michael was in court, 6 months after sentencing. He came for the final hearing before his reassignment to Germany. He looked healthy, strong, like a man who'd rebuilt himself from ashes. The judge gave him a medal for cooperation in a federal investigation, and after the session, he came to see me, not alone, but escorted by 2 officers. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I finally said, "Did you ever love me, Michael?" He took a breath, eyes soft but distant. "I did. Once. But love doesn't survive lies, Laura." He turned to leave, then paused. "You're lucky, you know. You get to live and try again someday. Some of us just keep carrying ghosts." And then he walked away. That was the last time I saw him. Years later, I heard from another inmate that he'd been promoted and transferred overseas. Germany, then Japan, then somewhere else. I like to imagine he found peace, maybe remarried, maybe finally built the life we couldn't. As for me, I count my years in small things. Letters from my lawyer, seasonal menus in the cafeteria, the sound of gates unlocking every morning. I read books now. I keep a journal. Sometimes I even write letters I never send, to Michael, to Samantha, even to Ryan. But mostly, I write to the woman I used to be, the one who thought loneliness was an excuse for betrayal. If I've learned anything in here, it's that the worst prison isn't made of bars. It's the one you build inside yourself, brick by brick, lie by lie, until there's no room left for forgiveness. Some nights, when the cell is quiet and the guards make their rounds, I close my eyes and pretend I'm back home, that Michael is making coffee in the kitchen, that we're still us. And then I open my eyes, and the dream fades. 20 years of marriage, and I destroyed it with one lie, one man, and one moment of cowardice. This isn't a revenge story. It's a confession, and maybe, in some twisted way, a warning. Because once you start lying to the person who trusts you the most, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to remember who you were before the lies began.